Then in 2015, Meek Mill became involved in a beef with Drake because he revealed that Drake used a ghostwriter for most of his raps. The ghostwriter in question, Quentin Miller, who had worked with Drake on many of his hit songs up until that point, and Mill wanted Drake's fans to know that he wasn't the genius the public portrayed him as. This sparked a series of diss tracks that only ended when Mill was sentenced to prison and Drake voiced support for the Free Meek Mill campaign.
Drake has long claimed to be one of the greatest lyricists in the game, but shocking new revelations say otherwise. Allegations are resurfacing that the Toronto rapper has been using ghostwriters for years, and this time, there's more than just rumors backing it up. From leaked reference tracks to insider testimonies, the truth behind Drake's biggest hits might not be what fans expected. In this video, we're breaking down the evidence that's shaking up the hip-hop world and exposing what could be one of the biggest deceptions in modern rap.
I really think a writer leaked the first version of Push-Ups. Like, a writer pitched it to him, they wrote the song, and they did it in the AI. You know, they pitched their voice for AI, so they could use his inflections, and then they pitched their voice for Drake's voice using AI. So they sent him the version of the record that they wrote. He took it, covered it, and then finished the production at that excellent level that OVO does.
Drake has long faced allegations tied to ghostwriting. Whether it's underpaying collaborators or borrowing flows, melodies, and lyrics, some artists claim he's lifted their work almost word for word. These accusations trace back to the early days of his career, with several artists calling him out publicly. While many examples exist, this segment will focus on one specific area: reference tracks. Reference tracks are essentially demos, a rough song version made by one artist, often intended to be completed and personalized by another. In Drake's case, he's created reference tracks for others too. One example includes his version of Kanye West's track, Yikes. Drake's reference had a slower melody, different vocal inflections, changed lyrics, and a pre-chorus that didn't make Kanye's final cut.
Drake's ghostwriter has been exposed against his will, lost work, been jumped, lost relationships, and exiled. The controversy began in 2015 when Meek Mill accused Drake of not writing his own raps and named Quentin Miller as a ghostwriter.
This highlights what reference tracks are meant to be: a creative skeleton. Another artist then reworks that skeleton into something original for release. This method is common in pop and R&B. Many major acts use ghostwriters. In fact, some rappers started off ghostwriting themselves. Tory Lanez began his career writing hooks for artists like Travis Scott and August Alsina. In those genres, ghostwriting is standard and accepted. But things shift when it comes to hip-hop. Especially when an artist is considered a lyricist, writing becomes personal. If an artist is seen as relying on others to pen their bars, it can impact how seriously their artistry is taken. Even outside of hip-hop, if someone prides themselves on songwriting, ghostwriting raises concerns.
This sparked a feud between the two rappers and brought Quentin Miller's name into the spotlight. Quentin Miller had written lyrics for Drake, but stated that he never asked to be in the spotlight and did not want to be known as a ghostwriter. He was credited. Despite this, he was unable to work with Drake and many other artists. In a recent interview, Quentin Miller discussed the pressure he's faced as a result of that controversy and how it affected his career, and he also talked about the importance of honesty and authenticity in hip-hop, and how mislabeling writers as ghostwriters can harm their career. One thing is that Meek Mill exposed.
Drake's artistic identity sits between rap, R&B, and pop, so the expectations around his pen vary. That raises the question, does ghostwriting damage Drake's credibility, considering how versatile his music is? If he's seen primarily as a pop artist, ghostwriting wouldn't raise eyebrows. He's even leaned into that image, releasing a song titled Pop Star and rapping lines like "rap is something I do on the side" during his Views era. Songs like One Dance, Controlla, Too Good, and Child's Play were structured pop hits. Drake's catalog fits into 4 core categories: pop records, R&B records, bangers, and timestamp tracks. Of those, only one truly suffers in authenticity when touched by ghostwriting.
This is an interesting question. Who is Drake's ghostwriter? This man is known as Drake's ghostwriter. His name is Quentin Miller. In 2014, Miller used to work on a job, but one day Drake texted him and Drake showed him his album. After this, they worked together on If You're Reading This, It's Too Late album. This all started when Miller, in one interview, said he wrote for Nas, Big Sean, Drake, and other artists as well. This moment made so much controversy at that time, but Quentin Miller didn't want to claim that he is writing for Drake. He told that he only assisted Drake. Quentin Miller, he is ghostwriter, but he didn't want it to known as Drake's ghostwriter. But then Funkmaster Flex leaked reference track for 10 Bands by Quentin Miller.
Okay, 10 bands, 50 bands, 100 bands, fuck it, man. I'm trying to run through the budget. 10 bands, 50 bands, 100 bands, fuck it, man. Let's just not even discuss it, man.
Meek Mill beef of Drake also happened because of this. Also, he didn't get paid, and Quentin Miller is now known as Drake's ghostwriter.
That's the timestamp records. Songs like 4 p.m. in Calabasas and 5 a.m. in Toronto, where lyrical precision and storytelling take center stage. Pop records, on the other hand, often involve co-writers. Artists like Rihanna, Billie Eilish, and Katy Perry rely on songwriting teams. Drake, being compared to them in this space, gets some leniency when it comes to pop writing. R&B records can spark more criticism. These tracks usually express personal emotions, and having others write them may seem less genuine. Still, Drake has both written R&B for others and had help on his own tracks. He's credited with writing Fall for Your Type for Jamie Foxx, Unthinkable for Alicia Keys, and I'm Single for Lil Wayne. He's also received contributions. One of the most discussed examples is Take Care, where The Weeknd helped create several of the album's standout R&B tracks. Songs like Shot for Me, Crew Love, Good Ones Go, and Doing It Wrong were reportedly pulled from The Weeknd's early material. At the time, The Weeknd had just begun gaining traction with House of Balloons. Many fans felt he took a backseat role, while Drake's profile soared. Though The Weeknd was credited in some areas, others believed the full extent of his influence wasn't properly acknowledged. Years later, The Weeknd reflected on those early decisions in his music, appearing to show regret for what he gave up during that collaboration. The situation revealed a larger pattern. Artists close to Drake in the creative process often contribute significantly, but don't always receive equal visibility. Drake's writing contributions to other artists have been significant. He penned R&B tracks like Fall for Your Type for Jamie Foxx, Unthinkable for Alicia Keys, I'm Single for Lil Wayne, and R.I.P. for Rita Ora. On the flip side, artists like The Weeknd wrote much of the R&B content for Take Care. The process, according to Drake, is often collaborative, artists exchanging ideas, building on each other's energy in the studio. That concept works for many in the music world. Artists like Chris Brown, especially during the mid-2000s, had co-writers for major hits, yet his status in R&B remained untouched. Collaboration isn't the issue, it's the pattern that emerges after the music drops. With Take Care, a clear tension developed. The Weeknd, then just stepping into the spotlight, gave up tracks meant for House of Balloons. Songs like Shot for Me, Good Ones Go, Crew Love, and Doing It Wrong. Those tracks were reworked for Drake's album, often leaving The Weeknd in a background role, contributing vocals or hooks but not sharing center stage. That album became a career-defining moment for Drake. Meanwhile, The Weeknd was seen as a supporting act, to the extent that many believed he was signed under Drake. Years later, The Weeknd's lyrics hinted at regret, suggesting that while the collaboration boosted Drake's status, it didn't give him the spotlight he deserved at the time. This dynamic has repeated with other behind-the-scenes collaborators. Unlike Drake's visible partnerships with peers like Nicki Minaj and Lil Wayne, where the spotlight was balanced, many low-profile writers in Drake's creative circle remain unheard. They often express frustration over their treatment and lack of credit. Some of these writers have worked closely with producers like Noah 40 Shabib, crafting tracks for Drake behind closed doors. While the artist receives the accolades, the writers behind the verses aren't always acknowledged publicly or compensated fairly. It's not just about the credit, it's about the recurring theme of contributors feeling sidelined. This issue becomes even more apparent when examining another category in Drake's catalog, the bangers. These are the high-energy rap tracks with catchy hooks and aggressive delivery. Songs like Nonstop, 10 Bands, 0 to 100, Trophies, Believe Me, We Made It, Worst Behavior, and Underground Kings. These tracks are less about introspection and more about dominance, confidence, and braggadocio. Many fans regard them as some of Drake's most memorable moments. A standout era for this sound came with If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, a project full of aggressive, bar-heavy records that leaned fully into that style. But controversy followed. After the album's release, questions arose about how much of it Drake wrote himself. Though it remains unclear what percentage involved ghostwriters, it's widely accepted that several tracks were crafted with major help. And that blurred the line between performance and authorship once again. Looking at what's already known, a significant portion of If You're Reading This, It's Too Late wasn't penned by Drake himself. The opening track, Legend, was written by Party Next Door. The next few, Energy, 10 Bands, Know Yourself, and No Tellin', are widely believed to have been written by Quentin Miller. That's 5 tracks back-to-back, all central to the album's impact. Further down the track list, Wednesday Night Interlude is a solo Party Next Door song. Track 11, Used To, featuring Lil Wayne, is also rumored to be a Quentin Miller creation. Song 12, Six Man, and Song 13, Company, with Travis Scott, are similarly tied to Miller's pen. In total, at least 10 of the 17 tracks from the project were allegedly not written by Drake. This all came to light during Drake's beef with Meek Mill, who exposed the situation with a tweet. The real tragedy here, however, is what happened to Quentin Miller, the writer behind the scenes. Despite playing a major creative role, he never managed to build a lasting solo career in the industry after the controversy. The issue isn't just that someone else helped write the music. The deeper concern is how those writers were treated. In many cases, those responsible for some of Drake's biggest hits were left in the shadows, uncredited or unsupported. That's why comments from artists like The Weeknd, who once said he was grateful he didn't sign his life away, carry so much weight. They suggest that contributing to Drake's success often came with a heavy cost. Returning to the 4 key categories of Drake's music: the pop songs, the R&B tracks, the bangers, and the timestamp records. Pop hits like One Dance or Controlla fit industry norms. Ghostwriting is common in that space, so outside help isn't unusual. In R&B, the line is more flexible. Drake has written for others, and he's received help in return. It's a shared creative process that's widely accepted. Then come the bangers, tracks that dominate projects like If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, and Her Loss. These are aggressive, high-energy songs with bold hooks and street appeal. Many fans considered this subgenre to be Drake's most authentic expression of his rap persona. So when the truth emerged that several of these tracks were ghost-written, it didn't sit well with audiences. Some still struggled to accept it. For fans who believe this project was Drake's rawest work, learning about the heavy involvement of outside writers changed everything. If You're Reading This, It's Too Late dropped in 2015 and stood out for its energy and bold production. For many, it remains a highlight in Drake's discography, representing a moment where his sound felt fresh, focused, and aggressive. Despite later revelations about ghostwriting, the project still holds strong influence. Since then, Drake's musical direction has shifted. While the formula largely remains, the spark that made earlier records stand out seems to have faded. The energy that once defined his sound appears diminished, replaced with tracks that feel more formulaic and less inspired. At this point, Drake is often viewed more as a pop figure than a leading voice in rap. Though he remains commercially dominant, some argue he no longer holds the creative momentum that once pushed boundaries. With more club-driven tracks becoming his go-to sound, the perception of his artistry has evolved. Comparing it to his earlier work, there's a growing sentiment that even if songs were ghost-written, they still packed a punch. In contrast, newer records often lack the same power. Fans who once questioned ghostwriting now express nostalgia for that era, preferring a well-executed hit over recent output that feels underwhelming. If ghostwriters helped shape tracks like 10 Bands or Know Yourself, the trade-off was impactful music that resonated. In contrast, some recent efforts feel unfocused. Given the choice between ghost-written bangers and current releases, some would gladly take the former. That leads into the final and most respected subgenre in Drake's catalog, the timestamp records. These songs, named after dates and times like 5 a.m. in Toronto or 7 a.m. on Bridle Path, are known for being introspective, direct, and personal. Drake himself has stated that these tracks are never written by others. They're designed to reflect his current mindset, career, and challenges at that specific point in time. It's what gives them weight and keeps them separate from the rest of his catalog. Here's where it gets interesting. Just before ghostwriting allegations around Drake surfaced, Kendrick Lamar dropped to Pimp a Butterfly. One track, King Kunta, featured the line, "I can dig rapping, but a rapper with a ghostwriter? What the shit happened?" That bar hit at the heart of hip-hop's value system, authenticity. Around that same period, Kendrick and Drake were exchanging subliminal shots. Their tension dated back to Kendrick's Control verse, where he called out nearly every major rapper. In that same stretch, Kendrick dropped lines like, "Nothing's been the same since they dropped Control," and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. The message was clear. It was aimed at Drake, referencing his album Nothing Was the Same while mocking his image. In return, Drake fired back on a remix to Future's track Up a Mile, knocking it up some commas, with lines about touring and dominance aimed straight at Kendrick. When a supposed reference track leaks and the internet immediately believes it's Drake, even if it's not confirmed, it shows just how much his artistic credibility has been questioned, especially when the leak sounds like it belongs in one of Drake's most sacred lanes, the timestamp records. Out of the 4 key subgenres, club bangers, pop hits, R&B cuts, and timestamp tracks, the latter has always been the one Drake insisted he writes entirely himself. These are deeply personal songs, full of layered bars, subliminals, and direct references to real-life events. The idea that someone else could craft one convincingly, it challenges everything Drake has said about owning this category. Writing a song like 10 Bands might not require deep insight, but a timestamp record? That takes knowing what's happening in Drake's world. His feuds, relationships, behind-the-scenes drama, and being able to turn that into sharp, coded lyricism. That kind of ghostwriting requires a whole different level of knowledge and precision. One reference track sparked rumors online that it might not be Drake at all, but a known ghostwriter named Chapo. Listeners pointed out similarities in tone and delivery, with several suggesting he was behind the leak. Some even recalled Chapo dropping hints during the beef between Drake and Kendrick, adding more weight to the theory. While the identity behind the reference track hasn't been confirmed, speculation continues to grow. Until more evidence surfaces, some are still willing to give Drake the benefit of the doubt. But the situation has reignited interest in the broader pattern that's followed him throughout his career. Drake hasn't only used ghostwriters in traditional ways. There are also claims of him lifting bars from lesser-known artists, sometimes without credit. These accusations stretch beyond his collaborations and suggest a larger issue of taking material that didn't originate with him. The OVO Sweatshop label continues to stick for a reason. Writers have come forward over the years with their own stories, detailing how their work ended up on hit records with little recognition. This has led to disputes, public tension, and growing skepticism about who really pens what in Drake's catalog. There's a long list of examples of tracks linked to outside writers or recycled bars. A full breakdown is on the way, featuring nearly every case where Drake has been accused of using someone else's words or melodies without proper credit. If you've been following along, hit that like button.